Welcome everyone. Hello. Let me adjust the volume. Okay, I guess the volume is okay now. Good evening everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crossing the T's. If you're new to this show, Crossing the T's is a 30-minute show where we discuss uh, linguistics applied to our classroom practices. If you're new to this channel, guys, don't forget to hit subscribe at the end of this episode and also to hit the like button, which is a thumbs up, if you liked this video. It makes a huge difference for us if you do all these two things. Besides, if you hit the subscribe button, you're going to receive notifications every time we upload new videos, new content. So then you are not going to be, uh, it's not going to be necessary for you guys to, oh, do we have new videos on Marcelo Consultoria? Oh, no, we don't. Oh, yes, there's a new video there. No, YouTube is going to notify you every time we post something new content on YouTube. So once again, at the end of this video, hit subscribe and also hit like at the end of the video if you liked it. Okay, I'm so sorry. I have to start by apologizing to you guys. I know I'm a little bit, actually, I'm not a little bit late anymore. I'm super late with the video content, but the last month, I have to say, the last month's been completely chaotic. A lot of work, a lot of things, and I know this video was supposed to be live. I was supposed to be live with you guys, having this discussion with you guys, but unfortunately, when we were supposed to be live, there was a thunderstorm here where I live, and the internet connection was not very stable. I was having some huge internet issues here. And then I decided to postpone. I actually decided to record this video in that week, but then this craziness happened. So here I am after almost 3 weeks. I know I'm late, so I'm so sorry, guys. But here we are. We have the videos here, and I hope you have a great time. And I'd like to start by asking you guys, um, imagine the following situation, okay? You have a group of 14-year-olds, all right? And in this group of 14-year-olds, uh, of course, they're very into social media. They're super into YouTube. And you're about to select some materials for their class. And as you select this material, you think it's a good idea to select a material about the Cold War. Yes, the Cold War. Do you really think that they're going to be motivated, or when they face the content, do you actually think that they're going to be engaged? Do you think this material you selected is actually going to communicate well with these students? Uh, do you think that they're actually going to participate in your lesson, in your class? Um, I don't think so. Seriously, I really think that this is not going to be a very wise selection by you guys, selecting a material about the Cold War. Even though I do find it extremely interesting. There's a lot of interesting things related to the Cold War, not the whole situation itself, but there are many um, historical, interesting historical aspects involved. But I don't think it's going to communicate very well with your students. Your students are actually not going to feel motivated and encouraged to participate in your English class. Um, and if they're not very motivated to do that, we all know that learning is hindered. The outcome, the expected outcome, is not going to be as what we wanted because they're not going to feel motivated to actually engage and participate. Well, let's see how this is going to work. This is going to be our discussion today. We're going to talk about why we have to contextualize every lesson, every class, everything what we do, everything that we bring into our classroom, we have to contextualize. And why? Well, we're going to see in this next 30 minutes or so, okay? So let's take a look at the importance of motivation, okay, guys? Um, the importance of motivation is something that caught the attention of Robert Gardner. And then you can ask me, Rudy, it's not Robert, it's Howard. Well, no, there's another Gardner. That's not Howard. Robert Gardner in the 60s, he developed kind of like an equation, okay? And in this equation, he said he included a lot of items and variables in this equation. And in one of this equation, we do have previous learning or previous knowledge. And this previous knowledge is summing up with um, motivation that multiplies some other variables, some other learning aspects, okay? Aptitude, etc., etc. All right. What happens? I know we're all English teachers here or language teachers here, but what happens to an equation or what happens to a calculation that we're making if we multiply anything by zero? Yes, we're going to have a null result. So if we do have previous knowledge adding or added to um, motivation multiplying by several other variables, and if motivation is zero, we're going to annul all the other part of the equation, leading us with, or actually uh, giving us nothing else than previous knowledge. Previous knowledge. Basically, in other words, we're not going to learn anything new. We're going to stay where we are. Our students are going to stay where they are. Okay. Uh, and it's not just this. It's not just like, okay, so my students are not going to be motivated, and because it's all about the Cold War, and they're not going to learn. Yes, they're not going to learn. Actually, they're not going to learn anything related to Cold War, and they're not going to pay attention to any linguistic feature that you're going to bring into the classroom. Yes, learning is doomed, is hindered. All right. And one more thing, motivation leads to attention. All right. And attention leads to exposure, which leads to memorization. All right. So even if your lesson, remember, I have just said you selected a material about the Cold War, even if your selection about the Cold War is not communicating well with their students, maybe there is a chance that we have a group of students that are very into history or historical aspects. And okay, maybe they're going to get a bit motivated to participate, to engage in your lesson. Um, all right. But maybe there's going to be some point, at a certain point, they're not going to pay attention to whatever we're doing in the classroom. And again, attention leads to exposure, which leads to memorization. All right. And remember, I told you guys, if I'm not wrong, it was in the very first episode of Crossing the T's. I told you that the idea of teaching a language is that our students will go beyond the language. The language transcends the language. It's more than that. So yes, it's more than that. We want our students to actually transcend the language, but they're not going to be able to do that, or actually we're not going to be able to expect this from our students if they are not motivated, because seriously, they're going to be like, oh, so what? I have to do some research on Cold War, but I don't care about the Cold War. This happened like 300 years ago. That's what they feel. They feel like the Cold War happened 300 years ago. It's pretty much what we thought when we were learning uh, about the Second World War or even the First World War. I remember when I was in school and whenever my teachers said, okay, so we're going to talk about the First World War or the Second World War, and I thought, whoa, this happened like three 3 centuries ago. Why are we going to talk about this? So they're going to feel the same about the Cold War. All right. So again, it's not going to communicate. Their motivation is going to be super low. It's going to hinder attention, meaning that they're not going to pay attention. They're not going to try to be exposed to the language, you know, because they're not paying attention. And also, they're not going to transcend. They're not going to get in their houses and, like, oh, let me do some research on this because it's super cool. I want to know more about the Cold War, or I want to know more about this material that my teacher brought to the classroom. Okay, so not a very good idea. Um, Not at all. Not at all, for sure. But if we do contextualize our materials, okay, our materials, if we do contextualize our lessons, uh, we're not only going to engage our students, we're also going to give them opportunity to actually um, produce in situations. So, for example, let's say that you have a group of students or learners. Let's consider adult learners, for instance, okay? And they do have some, I don't know, some social context, like going to a barbecue because, even vegans like to go to barbecues, even if they don't eat the food that's being prepared, but they like to go to barbecues because it's a very nice social gathering. So this is a context that we have. And how are how are our learners supposed to communicate in that context? They are going to look at you and say, "Okay, teacher, I've been invited to this barbecue or to this social gathering, and I have no idea how to linguistically behave." You know, actually, they do have an idea how to do that in their native languages, but they have no idea how to do that in this new language. And that's why we have to contextualize, because if we provide context to our lessons, we're going to be able to uh, actually to provide our students with exponents and functions. Really, what are you talking about? Okay, let's try to remember some of the terms that I've just said here, that I've just mentioned here. Okay, so what are functions? Functions are basically the reason why a person is saying whatever he or she is saying. Okay, so for example, um, I I want to greet someone. So greeting is a function, meaning that why is the person saying whatever this person is saying? Because this person wants to greet you or to greet another person. So that's function. And the context is going to support the function. Like, okay, so I have this context. What do I want to say in that context? I want to say this. This is my message. I want to greet people as soon as I get to this barbecue. Um, and then the context is also going to support the exponents. What are the exponents? The words that we're going to use in order to express whatever we want. Okay? And we do have some examples here. So in the first one we have, you crazy? And in the second one we have, with all due respect, I believe they are all part of the same function. What's the function that we have here in both number one and number two? Disagreeing. So if you want to disagree, uh, these are, of course, there are many options, but these are the two options that I selected here. Disagreeing is the function here. But of course, you're not going to say, you crazy, in the middle of a meeting, or when you have a meeting with a boss, or a meeting with your team, or even if you have young learners. The idea, of course, is to have young learners not to say to their teachers, you crazy, you know. Um, but depending on the other context, like a barbecue, or any other social gathering that's more informal. Yes, why not? You're talking to a person and say, "You crazy?" Like, what? Why are you telling me this? Why are you saying this? You know, yes, that's pretty possible and appropriate, I'd say. On the other hand, what we have in number two is something more appropriate to a more um, formal or official gathering. With all due respect, I believe that this, you know, gadget is not going to work, or that this project is not going to work because of this, this, and that. So again, that's why we have to contextualize, because the context is actually going to insert our students into a given scenario. And again, our students already know, if we consider that they already know how to behave in certain situations. They already know how to behave in those situations. What they don't know are the exponents. They don't know these exponents. I mean, they know the exponents, but they don't know how to combine these two things. You crazy? Or, with all due respect, I believe. That's why contextualizing your lesson is so important. Context supports functions which support exponents. All right, guys? Hopefully you're following me here, okay? Hopefully. And once again, guys, if you do have some questions, if you want to uh, further discuss whatever is being said here, don't hesitate. Use our social media. We're going to upload this to YouTube, so you can use the comment section below here. You can also use because we're going to share it to Facebook, to our Facebook page, and also on Instagram. So you can use Instagram, you can also use Facebook, um, even YouTube, the comment section here, to kind of like interact with us. It's not going to be live, but you can interact with us. You can ask your questions. You can agree or disagree. But please, if you disagree, don't say, "You crazy." Come on, that's not cool. All right. I know it's not that formal. The context is not that formal, but "you crazy?" No, you don't have to say "with all due respect." You can just say, "Well, Rudy, I think," or "I believe." Okay, guys. So let's keep going. Okay, let's keep going. Um, some years ago, I wrote an article talking about this game that we play with young learners. This game is called Simon Says. If you teach young learners, you've probably played this game like gazillion of times, gazillions of times. And why is this game is so important? There's a huge importance behind this game, and why? Especially in the process of second language acquisition. Uh, it's not just a game, all right? It's not like, oh, kids love Simon Says. Yes, it's pretty cool. It's fun. Uh, I like it too, and I'm not that young anymore. I know I look young, but I'm not that young anymore. But kids love, or young learners love this game, but it's not just because they love and engage. Okay, uh, it's a way for them to use the target language also. Okay, so they like it, and it's a way for them to use the target language, which is English in this case. Uh, it's a situation in which they can also move. So movement's really cool. Uh, there's an episode of Chá Pedagógico in it that my great brother Andre Hedlund and I would talked about kinesthetic profile learning style. So moving is really important in this process as well. But Simon Says generates context so that students associate the context to the concepts. It's all about concepts. Remember some of the previous episodes of Crossing the T's? I talked about conceptualizations very briefly. Yes, it's all about concepts. So, for instance, um, if when we say Simon Says, uh, touch your knees, you know, our students already know what knees are. What they don't know, though, is what the word knee represents. That's why the visual aid in this case, because our students are seeing us. They're taking a look at, oh, wait a minute, where, oh, the teacher is putting his hand or her hand on her or his knee. Oh, so knee means blah, blah, blah. Got it. All right, great. And more than this, it's going to expand because then, okay, so touch means this action. Got it. So the whole context of Simon Says uh, helps the students associate the words to their concepts. And they already possess the concept. They already have this concept. They already know what knee means. They already know what touch means. What they don't know, though, again, is the word, the exponent that we're supposed to use in that context in order to express that function, you know. So Simon Says is a phenomenal game, not only for young learners, okay, but also for adults as well. Come on, try to do that with your adult learners. It's going to be super fun. And especially now if you're teaching online. If you do that with your students, not only with your adult learners, online, it's even better because they're both going to be probably in their houses and nobody's going to watch them. You know, it's not going to be embarrassing for them to do that in a room with windows where anybody could easily pass by and see what the hell are these guys doing there? Has the teacher gone crazy? Have students gone crazy here? You know, so it's really cool to do this with both kids and adult learners as well. All right, because they're going to be exposed also to the phonological sequence. I forgot to mention the phonological sequence. Everything's awesome about this game of Simon Says. Seriously, do that with both of them. It's really nice and it provides context as well. For kids, the game itself is already a context. For adults, not that much, but it's a great game for you to play with them. Okay? Now, since I mentioned adult learners, let's go back to them a little bit again. Um, Probably, if you teach adult students, if you have a group of adult learners, probably they see themselves in a situation in which they are participating in meetings or calls, especially now that everybody's uh, working from their houses. So, yes, I think this is more common than ever. Um, they're used to participating in meetings in their native languages. Yes, they are. Super common for them. They already have the concepts. They already know how to behave in a meeting. They already know what to say in a meeting that they're participating in. They're participating in their native language. In our case here in Brazil, Portuguese. I'm going to use Portuguese as L1 as an L1 example. All right. So they already know what to say, how to linguistically behave in Portuguese. All right. And they also they also know uh, the chunks that they're supposed to use, the meaningful chunks that they're supposed to use in order to better express him or herself. They already know all these things. Seriously. In L1, they are masters in doing this. All right. Um, when we bring this meaning context to our classes, to our lessons, all right, we are going to trigger all these things. We're going to force our, well, yeah, kind of like force our students to actually retrieve all these concepts and all these things, you know, because seriously, they already know how to assign jobs. They already know how to provide feedback. All these are functions that happen in the context of meetings, okay, or calls. So if you if they're participating in a meeting, they're assigning jobs or being a job assigned to him or herself. Provide feedback is also common in meetings or calls. Negotiate is also another function that we have in the context of meetings. And present results. They already know how to do that. They already know how to um, express or perform all these things in their native language. So when we bring this context to our classes, to our lessons, our students are going to retrieve all these things. So in their minds, they're going to be like, okay, that's what I normally say in this situation, assigning jobs, for example. So that's what I normally say in my language, in my native language, when I'm assigning jobs. How do I do that in English, for example? Oh, the teacher is going to provide me the model. Oh, so this meaningful chunk means this in my native language. Great. I already know how to assign jobs in English. I already know how to provide feedback because when I provide feedback, that's what I say. What's the equivalent in English? This chunk, this meaningful chunk. All right, so I'm already able to provide feedback in English, so on, so forth. So they're basically going to associate the function to the function to the new language because again they already know how to do that in their native languages. Okay, all right, guys. And if that's a big if, okay, if we do have a coincidence, maybe the exponents that we use or that we're going to use in English are the same in equivalence and in order as in their native language. If we think about Portuguese, for example, we may have this coincidence. It's possible to have a coincidence in which we have the words representing the same words as in Portuguese in the exact same order. It is possible, but not so easy to happen. It facilitates the process, but if it doesn't, all we have to do is to contextualize in order to in order to make our students retrieve the functions, the concepts they already possess, and associate all these things to the new language, to the new meaningful chunks that we're going to present. All right. But as I normally say, the day isn't always beautiful, the birds aren't always singing, the sky isn't always blue, and the sun isn't always shining. All right. We may have some negative impact of a context because so far I've talked about how context can positively impact uh, our students. It can also have a negative impact. How does that work, Rudy? Is it possible? Yes, it is pretty possible. Okay. Um, Imagine a situation in a context in which our students don't have a very good experience. And really worry citing Tracy Tokuhama Espinosa here. Yes, because she gives a fantastic example of a person that's learning how to swim, actually a kid that's learning how to swim. So a kid that's learning how to swim, or actually a kid that doesn't know how to swim, if for some reason this kid has a very bad teacher, and this teacher just, you know, pushes the student to the swimming pool or to the river, whatever, wherever, and just says, come on, kid, go ahead, swim. This kid's going to have a terrible experience regarding learning to swim. Okay, so the whole context of swimming is going to negatively impact the learning. Maybe this student is going to learn, because the student is going to think, okay, so I'm drowning. I have to do something. So maybe if I use my legs, if I use my arms, maybe I'll do something and I'll survive. And then one thing is going to lead to another until this kid is going to learn how to swim. Not properly learn how to swim, but will learn how to swim, or at least to survive in a swimming pool or in the river, in the sea, you know. So this whole context is negatively going to impact the student. So whenever this student or whenever this kid that uh, didn't have a very good experience sees himself in the swimming pool, for example, this person is going to remember the whole episode, and automatically this person is going to think, whoa, it's the whole situation again. It's the swimming pool again. So I'd better do something to my body in order to survive, because that's what I did at that time, in that moment, and all these things. So that's how a context can negatively impact the learning. Not that they are not going to learn, they will, but the experience is going to be extremely, extremely unpleasant. They are going to learn from the pain that they had. It's painful, and they're going to be like, okay, I learned that. I learned how to swim, or I learned English, but there was no enjoyment. All right. And this reminds me of a teacher that I had uh, to provide feedback with. And this teacher, she she had this great idea to uh, basically use um, Christina Aguilera, to bring Christina Aguilera to a group of students. All right. In in this group of students, they were very young. They were 11 or 12. And that was not when Christina Aguilera was a big hit. I'm talking about 3 years ago. So 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, this teacher had this great idea. Like, oh, she was about to teach comparatives. Yes, I remember that. She was about to teach comparatives. I was going to observe her lesson and provide her feedback. Um, like, oh, so these were the positive points of her lesson. These were the negative points of her lesson. We can make some adjustments here and there, and etc. Um, it was not good. First, the group had no idea who Christina Aguilera was, because if this happened 4 years ago, I'm talking about uh, 2016, 2015. So, and if those kids were 11 or 12, they were born in 2005. In 2005, Christina Aguilera was a big hit. So maybe they started listening to radio or to music not only until 2011, 2012. 2012, 2011, Christina Aguilera was not a big hit anymore. So, of course, the whole material didn't communicate very well with the kids. Um, they didn't like the song either. I remember seeing many of those kids saying, "Teacher, why is she screaming? I mean, she's not singing, she's screaming. That's terrible." So the whole focus of the students were on the person, Christina Aguilera, and how she screamed instead of actually sang. The whole class was a disaster. And of course, I had to tell this teacher, like, look, teacher, that was not a very good choice, not very wise choice, because it's not going to communicate with the students. They don't know who Christina Aguilera was. You had to make sure that they knew who she was before you brought into the classroom. And, you know, so the whole learning process was hindered because of a poor choice coming from a teacher. So not very nice. That's to prove how important uh, contextualizing our lessons is really important, you know. Woo. Okay, guys. So, wow. Yeah, I had a great time. I don't know about you, but I did, you know. And once again, I'm so sorry for this delay. I know this content was supposed to be live. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time or the chance to do that. But of course, future episodes of Crossing the T's is going to be back live, so you can participate, interact, uh, tell me all your experiences, what you've been through, and all these things. But seriously, guys, contextualize your lessons. It is really important. It's all about motivating your students, and if it motivates your students, they're going to pay attention. If they pay attention, they are going to probably learn. Actually, it's going to maximize the possibility of learning. Okay? And if you really liked this episode of Crossing the T's, which I really, crossing the fingers, I really hope you did. Don't forget to hit the like button that's down below here. And don't forget also to subscribe to the channel because it's also really important. And also you get notified every time we upload new content to the channel. Okay, guys? Thank you so much. I'm Rudy Mattiello. I'll see you around. And oh, and one more thing. Don't forget, stay safe. And if you have to go out, don't forget to wear a mask. It's really important. COVID's already there. It's still out there. Okay? Thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.